Good day, everybody, and welcome to the Live at the Waterhole show. And we've opened up with this great pic of the Old Donyo Lodge, Africam Old Donyo Lodge camera up in Kenya with two Maasai giraffe, two olive baboons, and an oryx. Isn't this unbelievable? This is a live show, obviously, and it is also interactive. So if you'd like to ask me some questions or send through some comments, you are welcome to do that. You just need to go and register on the WildEarth website to do so. And it would be great to share today's show with you, actually. And I'm going to be with you for the next 3 hours while we look at what's happening all over the place. Weather is fantastic at the moment. And gosh, just look at those right there in the distance. Let's go and have a look at what the weather's doing at all the feeds that we have available. As you can see from the weather around, it is a hot day. We are definitely moving into our summer down here in the southern hemisphere. Well, I'm in South Africa right now. I'm right close to the Kruger National Park. In fact, I'm looking at the Kruger National Park out of the window that I'm at. And very, very spectacularly, and this is a rare sighting in the background of what you're seeing there is Mount Kilimanjaro. That is the highest freestanding mountain in the world, and is an extinct volcano that you're having a look at. And yes, you are right. You are looking at clouds, but right at the top, you can see some evidence of snow. There's actually a glacier at the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, and on an epic day like this, which is rare up here, to see the top of the mountain is absolutely spectacular. And in particular, since we've got this giraffe, the tallest mammal on the planet, standing next to the tallest freestanding mountain on the planet. I don't know, there's some poetry in there. Gosh, what a view. That is amazing. I actually don't know too much about Mount Kilimanjaro, to be honest with you. I know it's freezing at the top there, and I know that the glacier that's at the top is retreating. But yeah, what a good view. So you can see the olive baboons that are drinking out of the pan at the moment. That means what they're doing while they're having a fight. Horrible wounds on themselves, actually, with fangs that are longer than a lion's, not quite as thick or as robust as a lion's canines, but definitely longer and can slash with some meaning. Now they've gone out of camera shot, so we can't see them, but you can see that the giraffe are busy watching what they're doing. That is such an incredible shot there of Mount Kilimanjaro in the background. Thank you for the guys zooming in. Just have a look at that. Oh, what a special sight. That is a very rare sighting of the mountain. Even when you're living on the border of Kenya and Tanzania, there you go, the giraffe just sailing through the view. Even when you're living in this area, you don't get to see the top of Kilimanjaro often. We're in Kenya now. Kilimanjaro is in Tanzania, on the boundary of Kenya and Tanzania, close to quite a famous national park called Amboseli. We're in the Old Donyo Conservancy, which is a very large conservancy, over 100,000 hectares. And what we've got here is we've got a male giraffe just having a drink. And have a look at that. It's quite special to watch the giraffe. They're quite vulnerable when they bend down like this. So they don't spend a lot of time. Here we've got an eland that's just coming to view as well. Africa's largest antelope, Africa's tallest mammal, and Africa's tallest mountain. So we're all in one shot. All we need now is an elephant. And it would be perfect. Hey Mel, all the way from Tasmania, good to hear from you, and what wonderful views. I couldn't agree with you more. Good to hear from you, by the way. Yeah, no, it's really a spectacular show opening this morning from this Africa Maldonado feed. I've probably done, I don't know, about 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I didn't even realize that this camera was facing Kilimanjaro, to be honest. That's how little we've been able to see of that mountain. Spectacular. Coming into view on the left is an impala, a young male. You can see from his horns that haven't got that characteristic shape. And we've got this fairly large herd of eland. There you go. There's a much bigger male impala. You can see what his horns are. That youngster's horns are going to be like one day. Approaching quite cautiously. I haven't been on the show for some time now, probably a week or more, and the bush is definitely drying out. Kenya has 2 wet seasons and 2 dry seasons. They don't really have a winter and a summer because they're on the equator. Whereas here, where I'm sitting in South Africa, we're coming out of winter. It's still winter now. 1st of September is our spring day officially, although I must be honest with you, I can see knobthorns flowering. This morning I was looking at a shambok pod that was in flower, and heard a class cuckoo in the garden this morning, and they're migratory. They just come in for the summer, and so we're starting to get our migratory birds back. I have no doubt that that Juma has had its first Wahlberg's eagle, and they would have actually passed this point in Africa a couple of weeks ago. Gosh, look at how shiny that impala's coat is. Beautiful. Great.
Do you love relaxing at a waterhole with the sights and sounds of Africa all around you? Well, we have some really exciting news for you. From August 1st, Africam is joining forces with WildEarth to bring the majesty of Africa right into your living room with 9 incredible new waterhole cameras from across South Africa and Kenya. Get ready to embark on a new journey. This is Live at the Waterhole.
Right. We are still looking at Mount Kilimanjaro from this fantastic Africa Moldonia feed coming to us from Kenya. We're looking into Tanzania for those of you who have just joined us, and that mountain that you're seeing in the background is Mount Kilimanjaro. It is one of the seven tallest peaks, or what they call the seven peaks. It tops out at about 6,000 meters above sea level and is an extinct volcano. Actually made up of three different volcanic cones. We can see the tallest one just off to the left with the glacier on the top. And Kilimanjaro is one of those very famous mountains that are on people's bucket lists to climb from time to time. In fact, that is such a great shot. Air is super clear. Wow. Such a great view of that mountain, just the way that it is. It's going to be a clear day, and I hope it stays that way. But why don't we go and have a look at one of our other cameras further south? And just like that, we have come 5,000 kilometers south, and we are looking at a Swainson's spurfell with a sore leg at Afrikam's Cat-Eye Pan. We're on the borders of the Kruger National Park here, Elephants Game Reserve, and that spurfell was the largest of the spurfell that we find in this area. And for those of you who are quick with the eye and noticing the detail, you would have noticed the very robust spurs that male spurfell had on his legs. And it is most likely what's injured him was a fight with another bird. Now let's see if he comes out here. Such a great view. So unlike the Oldonyo feed where we were looking at Mount Kilimanjaro in the background, this particular camera has, there it goes. Okay, so we're looking at the spurfell again. This particular camera is called Cat-Eye Pan because we're at a cat's eye view, very low down. Let's see what's going to happen with the spurfell. See if you can see those spurs if he decides to give us a view. I don't think his injury is doing him any harm. I think he's just sore, probably from being kicked by another male. See when he decides to jump up here. Deciding to hide behind the wall there. This isn't, as you can see from that structure in your shot, this is an artificial pan. I'll get a bit of a clearer view. Just make sure that this is a Swainson's Franklin and not a Natal spurfell. Tough to see with the resolution that I have on my side, but we've got one of two options there. Large spurfell with those colorings. The difference is one has a red face and the other one has an orange face. Tell me what one you thought that it was. Did we look at an orange face there, or were we looking at a red face? The Swainson's is bigger than the Natal spurfell, but with a shot like that where you've got no context, it's actually quite difficult to say. All right, so that's what's happening at Katapan. Why don't we go and have a look at Naledi? Gosh, birds everywhere this morning. So this is Africam's Naledi, which is also in Olifants West Game Reserve next to the Kruger National Park in South Africa. So we've just come a couple of kilometers away, and what we're looking at here are helmeted guinea fowl. Aren't they just the most shocking birds? You know, they're fairly common, but it never really ceases to amaze me at how beautiful these birds actually are. You can see that sort of hardened crest on their heads, where it gets its name from. Beautiful dark grey feathers with a pearlescent white spot on the all over the bird. Blue head, red notes to it. And is a symbol of fierce motherhood amongst a lot of the African tribes around Africa, and it's because they're quite protective. They fiercely protective of their flock and their chicks, but also quite caring and nurturing at the same time. I think a lot of you out there will key to what I've just said. This is such a great pan. I absolutely love the raised well with the overflow into the dam. I think it's such a great idea. I love the pool that it creates. Elephant have a tendency to dramatically change permanent water sources with their comings and goings. And isn't this just such a great shot of the zoom on this camera that you can now see those white spots of feathers and that ridge on their heads and their beautiful wattles that they've got underneath their beaks. And of course, birds spend a massive amount of their time preening their feathers, and that's what you're busy watching them doing there now. Is that birds will give a lot of care and attention to their feathers. Their feathers are what protect them from temperature changes, water birds obviously from getting saturated and heavy and cold and not as buoyant. Hannah, you've just commented that you want to say thank you for such beautiful views at the water holes. And I must be honest with you, I am exactly the same as you, full of gratitude for the fact that with very little disturbance to these animals, we're able to watch them doing their thing naturally in a natural environment, in a remote wilderness, many remote wildernesses in Africa, and at the same time have a conversation about what we're looking at, asking questions and learning from each other, and doing it pretty much from the comfort of a living room. Honestly, sometimes technology is frighteningly beautiful.
Did you hear? The schools are out. Yep, it's time for the school holidays, and WildEarth is celebrating with special content just for kids. Join us from the 21st to the 25th of August for 5 days of fun. Our guides will be taking on a number of survival tasks, and together we'll learn how to survive in the wilderness, build things, and have fun in the wild too. WildEarth Kids, it's in your nature.
So you see that these birds have moved to the shade of this tree. And they were just before they left the water and sort of quite hurriedly made their way over here. They were looking up, and while none of them are doing it now, they would have had a weather eye on the sky. And these birds are preyed upon by larger eagles. African hawk eagle, martial eagle will all make a meal of these birds on a day like today. And although you do see a shadow underneath this tree, which, oh, there you go. You see, they had a bit of a panic there. And look how closely they moved to the tree. So there's definitely something around. I don't think they're hunting the guinea fowl. I think they're getting a fright at something flying overhead, but it's not enough to cause an alarm. For those of you who are just joining us, my name is Stef Winterboer, and we're at Afrikam's Naledi Dam on the borders of the Kruger National Park. And what we're having a look at here is a flock of helmeted guinea fowl, which are pretty tight up against this tree that you're seeing them doing. A few of the braver ones are starting to venture away from the tree. But just judging from their behavior prior to this, where they were drinking and then moved close to the tree, I'm assuming, I don't know, but I'm assuming that there is some other type of raptor that's flying above them. I don't think it's hunting them. I think they're just reacting to the silhouette in the sky. If it was a predator on the ground, they'd be up in a tree. Melanie, you wanting to know if the guinea fowl roost at night? Yes, absolutely, and noisily so. So often at sunset, the guinea fowl will fly up into trees. So they sleep in fairly large trees, and then first thing in the morning, once the sun starts shining, they come down out of the trees and start doing what you're seeing them doing now, which is basically searching for seeds. it's a time of the year where grass seeds are not in abundance, and so these birds are not. Look at them run away there. Gosh, actually quite fun to watch. To be honest with you, guinea fowl and baboons and hyena are. You could spend hours watching them. They're always doing something. You can see these guys now. Look at this one in the front. Wants to run away with his friends, but just cocking that head up to the sky. Quite alert, these birds, when you're walking around in the bush in Africa, and you've got a lot of things that you need to watch out for: lion, leopard, etc. Guinea fowl are often one of those alarm calls. You listen for alarm calls from guinea fowl in order to determine, or in order to help you determine if there's anything dangerous lurking around. They definitely keep an eye on the bush, and having so many eyes that are so super vigilant, it helps you with your thing. Always good to have an ear open for guinea fowl. But also, conversely, when you're busy stalking up to something or tracking something and you see a flock of guinea fowl in front of you, it's always a wise thing to let them pass by. And if you can stay undetected, even better, because their alarm calls don't just keep humans aware of what's going on, but will also alert animals to the presence of a disturbance. So you'll see lions will react and leopard will react to the alarm calls of guinea fowl. Of course, if you're trying to sneak up on some lion, you don't want them aware of you. Again, I'm struck by if are close to the tree. I've assumed that there was a raptor of some sort flying above them, but you can also see that they are sticking to the shade, and it's fairly hot yet today, to be honest with you. I'm quickly going to go and check temperatures right now, and I'll let you know what the temperature is where we're sitting now. It's where I am. There's a fire. It's burning somewhere. And it's muted out the light to this very pastel yellow color. But where they are, it's not burning as much, and you can see, well, the fire hasn't reached there, a couple of kilometers north of where I'm sitting at the moment. And it's a clear, late winter day. I seem to be battling today with my microphone. I keep on switching it off, so apologies for being quiet for some time, and I'll just say what I said again right from the start. Um, I have another option for us to consider with these guinea fowl. It's already 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 27 degrees centigrade at 10 o'clock in the morning. I think these birds, apart from just keeping close to the tree for safety's sake, they're also in the shade to keep cool. But let's go and have a look at Katapan and see what's happening around there. Oh, great. Here we have our spurfowl in perfect view again, and you can see that it's got a red face and quite heavy striations or dark marks on its chest. This is absolutely a Swainson's Franklin, or Swainson's spurfowl, excuse me, to be more correct. And not from this angle, but what you're wanting to see if it's a male is on the exposed skin of its legs. So not the feathered portions of its legs, the exposed skin, quite low down, just above the foot, there will be a spur. I can just see them sticking out now. Let's see if this is a male. Females don't have the spurs. The males will use those spurs to fight with one another and can inflict quite heavy damage on each other with those spurs. You just see feathers flying, dust, and gosh, I must be honest with you, this is such a great shot of this bird. It's incredible. Super clear this morning. These webcams are honestly spectacular. Puffing up some feathers, shaking them out. Yeah. Okay, so you notice that was the same spurfowl that we were looking at. You notice that faint hop that he had there, the limp on his leg, not the hop. And he's now flown off. They don't like flying off. So the unusual behavior there was why did the spurfowl fly off like that? Give a choice. They walk and they run, preferably ducking from plant cover to plant cover, coming out into the open to display, to fight, and then also to feed. They, very similar to the guinea fowl, are also seed eaters. Have a look here just next to those reeds on the right hand side of the reeds. It looks like we've got a terrapin that's come out of the water. The terrapin is also called for those of you in the US at the moment, it's a freshwater turtle, and are a fairly common resident of permanent water sources. It could also just be a rock, but it does look like a terrapin. We have two species that it could be, the marsh or the serrated hinged. The larger one in the marsh terrapin, and I think that's what we're looking at the moment. Tough to say, but being cold-blooded, they come out of the water and sun themselves in order to regulate their metabolism. There you go. Give us a nice view. Definitely does look like a terrapin. There you go. Yes. Ta-da! These cameras, there's no ways you'd get that close to a terrapin at this pan if you were walking through there. And it's giving us such a great opportunity to study this terrapin. You can see how the body structure allows for the nose right on the tip of its neck and head to just stick out of the water without exposing the rest of the terrapin. So you can imagine if this was underwater, you can see the nose. Camera will come into focus now. Give it a little bit of patience. You know, we are bringing you a live interactive feed from a very remote place in Africa, and look at that. Covered in mud. Just getting the maximum amount of sun exposure that it can. You know, as a field guide, often are compelled to, for whatever reason, drives this compulsion, but to want to pick up and touch things. And most field guides learn very quickly not to pick up terrapins. apart from the fact that they can give you quite a nasty nip with that beak of theirs, they also urinate on you as a defense mechanism, and it is the most vile fluid that not even harsh dishwashing detergent can wash off. It makes you smell for ages. Raymond, you wanted to know how sensitive its shell is, and I'm assuming by sensitive, Raymond, that you meaning is it soft, is it pliable, or is it hard? It's a hard shell, Raymond, but very similar to every other turtle or tortoise out there. The shell is part of this animal's body. So if you were to for me to put it into context, the shell is made up of the pelvis and breastbone and shoulder blades and spine and hips of ourselves. If you would imagine your bones on the inside coming to the outside and your organs still attached to them on the inside, that's basically a, a tortoise. So if you were to find a dead tortoise and have a look at the shell on the inside, you'll see that the vertebrae are quite pronounced on the inside of the shell and form part of the shell. And then acts as a obviously as a protective measure. They can retract their legs in, and they can shorten their neck. They don't quite retract it into the shell, but they sort of hold it to the side and present a pretty formidable task to any would-be predator who wants to munch them. I have seen lion, and I have seen leopard, and I have seen hyena prey on terrapins. They do crunch them up. But with that vile-smelling urine they spray, and with their quite tough shells, they're not the preferred food source, I must be honest with you. I'm quite enjoying the smile on this terrapin's face. Looks like he's got a joke to share.
Get ready for your daily dose of African wildlife magic. Be enchanted by the intimate moments shared by the animals as they drink, play, and interact in their natural habitat. With our daily wildlife videos, you'll experience the thrill of safari adventures without ever having to leave your seat. Let the wild adventure unfold right before your eyes. Africam, always live, always wild.
Goodness me, I'm battling today with this mute button. I've been speaking it myself for the last 2 or 3 minutes. Obviously, it has to be that today. What I was just making a note of was the fact that this terrapin has stretched out its front leg, and you can see that it's got 5 toes, and there's a web between the toes. And it's normally you only pick up that particular marking with its claws in a track. You don't get to see that really great view of a webbed foot with the 5 claws on the front. This terrapin has now turned its body around and is stretching out that back foot just to warm up the different side of itself. It's a hot day here today. It's a late winter's day, excuse me, what am I trying to say? Late winter's day, already 90 degrees Fahrenheit, where we are now, and is set to increase in temperature by about another 5 to 6 degrees centigrade. But the hottest time of the day is still to come in about 5 hours from now. So it's going to be a great day. Where I am sitting, which is about 80 or 90 kilometers, about 15 miles south of this, the sky is muted out. There's a bushfire that's burning somewhere, and it's made the sky this lovely pastel, light gray, yellow. And bushfires at this time of the year are quite common. So the bush is dried out, and with the weather patterns changing, winds come up, and for any number of reasons, fires start and can sometimes burn for weeks. This terrapin is giving us such a great view. Starbuck, you've made an interesting observation and you've asked the question, can terrapins go into their shells? Yes, they can retract their feet and their front feet and their back feet. They can also shorten their neck a little bit. But their head turns to the side rather than going in like a tortoise. So they use the side of their head as a protection rather than retracting fully into their shells. Yes, they can to a degree, almost, but not completely. Interestingly, this terrapin has decided to turn. I've never witnessed this before, so you're learning with me as we're going on here. But obviously, terrapins are cold-blooded, and they use the environment to manage their metabolism. And what you've seen, and what I'm seeing here, is the fact that the back feet are splayed wide and probably as perpendicular to the sun as what it can manage. But it's turned its feet upside down, and it's both the front feet are turned upside down facing the sun as well, in what I can only imagine to be an effort to splay open as much skin surface area as possible to the sun, keeping the head and neck stretched wide. And what the terrapin will be doing is collecting energy from the sun, warming itself up, probably to help digest some food. Never sitting still. Unlike crocodiles, which are aware of their environment, but you hardly even see a crocodile move. Terrapins are constantly scanning. Pretty good hearing. And their eyesight is really great. You battle to sneak up on this terrapin, actually. This Turpin has given us such great views. But why don't we go and have a look at another one of our pans? We've come a couple of 100 kilometers west to Campers Dam, African Campers Dam. This is near a town called Kimberley, which is really famous for having a man-made excavated hole in the ground, hundreds of meters deep. That's a kimberlite pipe. Just carrying on with our theme of volcanoes. Kimberlite is a type of mineral, I suppose, containing diamonds that are brought up from below the Earth's crust in a volcano. And for those of you who've been with the show for some time this morning, we opened up the show up in Kenya where we had a beautiful view of Mount Kilimanjaro. And so there's some continuity here. Anyway, back to what we're looking at. These are flamingos. And this particular dam is one of the few places where these flamingos occur in quite large numbers and is protected as such. These birds are threatened, and they're threatened because of habitat destruction mostly. And they are the most beautiful color. They have a sort of pinkish tinge to them. And these lesser flamingos feed on mainly bacteria and phytoplankton in the water, sifting it out through a mesh in their bills. There's something so elegant about them. They stride through the water like that. So unlike the weather at the Pan where we were watching Terrapin, where it's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, Kimberley is freezing this morning, and no wonder these birds are just sitting quite still. It's 10 degrees, below 10 degrees centigrade at the moment, which is around about 48 or so degrees Fahrenheit. And that water must be ice cold. So that, if nothing else, gives you an idea that we're still in winter's grip here in South Africa. And although here in the Kruger it is a fantastic, definitely the same can't be said for where these guys are. You can see that there's a slight breeze ruffling the surface of the water. Still very brown vegetation in the background. And this flock of lesser flamingo are quite a lot of them today. They move predominantly at night. Obviously they fly during the day, but they move from pan to pan, from water source to water source, irregularly, and that's something that you can predict. So one day you'll have a flock this big, and the next day there won't be any, and sometimes there'll be one, sometimes there'll be a couple of dozen like they are now, and they move anywhere from a couple of kilometers to hundreds of kilometers as well. So very difficult to predict their movement. There's been a lot of studies done with the flight movements of lesser flamingo up in East Africa, where the numbers are relatively healthy. But in general, this bird is definitely a noteworthy species because of the fact that their numbers are declining. And it's because, unfortunately, of our activities, but not at this pattern. This is a protected site, and hopefully the numbers will remain stable and hopefully grow. It's a great view. There you can see that pink flush that they have, especially that one there in the background. You can see it lifting the feathers as they preen themselves. Very similar to those guinea fowl we were watching. Birds take an amazing amount of time out of their day to make sure that every feather and every filament on that feather is perfect. And on a day like today, where it's 10 o'clock in the morning and it's still below 10 degrees centigrade, can you imagine what the temperature at night must have been? It is vitally important that these birds maintain their feathers so that they are thermally protected at night time. Their body heat is conserved as much as possible, and that they're resistant to the wind. For those of you keen birders out there, you will notice there was a tiny little bird with a white speck on its beak that appeared briefly in the bottom of the screen and then disappeared again under the water. That was a dab chick. For those of you who are keeping bird lists, what we see on the shows, that was a dab chick. And this flamingo is giving us such a great view of that quite striking color that they have on their feathers.
We love all the support. We read all the comments, and now we want to acknowledge our biggest fans. Do you know when Ribbon was seen last? Or the names of June's cubs? Do you remember the last time we were up close and personal with an elephant? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you are in for a treat. WildEarth's Fan of the Month. We are looking for you. For more details, make sure to read our monthly mailer and keep an eye out on our social media pages. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
Great that we can see a couple of these flamingos flying through the shot like that, because you can get to see the pink coloration that they have on their under their wings. And every now and again you get a flash of color as one of the birds that we're looking preening themselves lifts a wing and you can get a glimpse of that storybook color. So WildEarth's mission is all about reconnecting connecting people with nature. And obviously, it would be great if you'd like to participate in that mission. And if you want to donate, you're welcome to go and have a look at the website and push the donate button and contribute what you can. Help keep these cameras going and keep this wonderful way of interacting live and interactive with all these great places in Africa. And for those of you just joining us again this morning, we are coming to you from Kimberley right now. This is Camphor's Dam, African Camphor's Dam, which is a protected dam sort of in the northern parts of South Africa, well, central, north, middle part of South Africa on the inland plateau. And it's protected specifically for these birds. Looking at these are lesser flamingos, and there's not that many of them in the world, relatively speaking. And we've been watching this flock now for quite some time, and not doing much except preening themselves. Jenna, you'd like to know if there's enough constant food supply for these flamingos. Yeah, I think so. We've been watching this dam for some time now, and there's always seems to be flamingos around. They do have wings and they can fly, and they do visit other pans in the area and can fly some considerable distance, hundreds of kilometers to other areas, if either the food security or their own personal security is threatened in some way. So definitely, I think that there's enough. They do eat phytoplankton, which are plants that grow almost microscopically in the water column. They also feed on bacteria, a lot of cyanobacteria, and algae. Algae, tomato. I don't quite know which one is which. But I think that in a pan like this, it's a healthy pan, and I think that there'd be enough stable food source to keep them alive, for sure. For those birders of you out there, there's a black-winged stilt that's come into screen sort of in the center of the screen behind that, at the back of the flock of flamingos. It's a white bird with black wings, long beak on it as well, quite slender bill that it uses to pick up small invertebrates from the water column. Freezing cold day here in this part of the world. It's not below zero. I'm sure it went below zero last night. I mean, it's 10:30 in the morning and it's only 9 degrees centigrade. With a breeze blowing, which would have added a significant wind chill to this flock of birds. They're just enjoying the sun at the moment for the most part and preening themselves. Not much feeding going on. Also, they seem to be fairly safe and secure. Not many of them are keeping an eye on the sky, which tells me that some predators that are associated with these water bodies, fish eagles for instance, aren't around. At least not active yet. Here's one coming. You can see the flamingo with the head under the water, and what that flamingo will be doing is slightly disturbing the layer of sediment on the bottom of the pan, and then sifting it through the sieves in their bill. Most of them, though, still preening and rearranging their feathers. But why don't we go and have a look at King's Camp and see what's going on at that camera? So just like that, we've come a couple of 100 kilometers east, and now we're in the Timbavati at King's Camp. And this is what we're having a look at over here is a troop of chakma baboon and some impala. So for those who joined us this morning, where the view in the background was Mount Kilimanjaro up in Kenya, where we had some olive baboon. This is now the chakma baboon. And of the three different species of baboon that we find in South and East Africa, this is the one that you find in South Africa. Fairly large troops, head up by several large males who look after the troop, and then females and youngsters. The males will have these squaddies who have a hierarchy that changes often. There will be several large males that vie for that position of bull baboon or dog baboon. And you can see that this baboon that's sitting on his bum there looking like the king of everything is probably one of the dominant ones, and has a female that's come over to him. Well, I'm assuming it's a female. It wasn't a young male, but it's probably a female that's come over to him and started grooming him, and he's just loving it. And it's just a way for them to strengthen ties and bonds. There's a very strict hierarchy amongst the baboons. We've also got some impala. You're seeing there's an all-male, female impala. There you go. Such a great thing that you can move the camera from side to side and you can zoom it in. These baboons just sunning themselves. Unlike the temperature at Camphor's Dam where we were looking at with the flamingos, where it was below 10 degrees centigrade. Right now, where we are here, is 30 degrees centigrade already, which is in the upper 80s, 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And there you can see a much clearer view of this bull baboon on the left-hand side, being attended to by a female. And then coming into the shot on the right-hand side is some youngsters. They're all young baby baboons. And probably mum or auntie. Baboons definitely taking a chance sitting on the side of the water like this. There are crocodiles in most water points in the world. Baboons. They're always doing something. I always assume that they're doing something mischievous. We've got cameras all over the place, and we're able to jump around and have a look at what's happening at any number of cameras. Why don't we go and have a look at another one? Oh, great! This is Naledi's Dam. Now we've just come a couple of kilometers further north of where we were, and we've got two elephants that have now come to this really great well. I personally love this particular construction. I love the fact that it's a raised well for the elephants, and then there's an overflow that then goes into the dam. If you're going to be building something like this, you might as well build something that looks cool. And here we have two bull elephant that are not very old, busy drinking. And you'll notice that they've wet behind their ears. And that's not me just being funny about youngsters. They really have wet behind their ears and not much else. Had a drink. These elephants, I don't know, every time I come here and there's elephants, they always seem to play with the water inside this well. They stir it up and splash it around. But back to what we were talking about. So it is a hot day here today, even though it's winter. It's in the 90s already, 10:30, 10:40 in the morning. And that elephant didn't wet its whole body. It's just wet behind its ears. And that's because the elephant have fairly large surface area of skin held in their ears. It's roughly 20% of the skin of its total body is held in their ears. And behind their ears is a network of blood vessels which circulate all their blood in their body through their ears. And their ears act as big radiators. And by wetting the back of the ear, they're effectively cooling themselves down as they flap the ears and create a draft. And on really hot days, the elephant will wet their whole bodies. But on a day like today, where it's warm, I mean, it's hot in most areas when you see 90 degrees Fahrenheit or 30, but the Kruger, it's a fairly average day. And this elephant's just decided that wetting the head and the back of the ears is enough. Are you going to go for a swim? Elephants love water. Right, that is wanting some mud. So that elephant's now using the tip of the trunk to pick up mud and is now splashing itself or the flanks with some mud. See, it feels good. And it's cool, and we all know what pleasant having mud on our bodies is. Are you going to go for a swim? Just looking for some warm.
Are you WildEarth's biggest fan? Well, we have a brand new competition for you. Join our naturalists on Safari Live and listen out for weekly questions. To enter the competition, head over to our Instagram, search #WildEarthFanOfTheMonth and comment your answer under the post. The monthly winner will be determined by the total quickest and most correct answers. We announce our winner at the end of every month. Tune in to Safari Live daily.
So we've got 1,500-pound eland, and this is a fantastic bull elephant. Not the largest tusks that we've ever seen, but a full-grown bull. He's probably weighing in anywhere around 4 to 5 pounds, which is, say, about 8,000 to 10,000 pounds. You can just see, and there's a zebra poking his face in. And then you can see that glacier at the top of Kilimanjaro just sticking out right of the elephant's ear. That is a cloud. That's the top of the mountain. That's an ice sheet at the top. Kimberly, you are 100% right. The sounds are super soothing. Really nice just to sit and listen. Here comes a giraffe and an eland. Big bull eland that. You can see how well developed he is in his chest and neck. Look how thick his horns are compared to the female that's just coming behind him. She's got long horns, but not as thick as the males. This Maasai giraffe, he's not coming in as well. They're usually quite unsteady on their feet on these rocks. Let's see what happens. Another Maasai giraffe coming in. The bull, both of them are males. You can tell that because they have thick horns and they're bald on the front. Females are tufted. Great. There's something so vulnerable about a giraffe. and they're drinking. It's nice to see them coming in and sharing water with the infant. With the eland. Great bull elephant there. They tend to get massive after about 45 years of age. It's almost like their bones get bigger and bigger, but at an accelerated rate. Old bull elephant with this enormous skull. The tusks obviously carry on growing for their entire life. Look at this elephant, dwarfed by the giraffe around them. For those of you just joining us, we're doing a tribute to Africa's greatest. Yeah, we've got really big bull elephant, tall giraffe, big eland, and tall mountain. Just to the right of the elephant's ear, you can see, well, off to the left of the elephant is a mountain, and then off to the right of the elephant you can see, just above the clouds, you can see a white strip. That is the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, tallest freestanding mountain in the world. So world's tallest animal, world's biggest animal, land mammal at least anyway, and Africa's the world's tallest freestanding mountain. All in the same shot. Slowly those clouds are starting to move in and they'll probably obscure the mountain. It's not a common thing to see the top of Kilimanjaro at all. It's usually almost always wreathed in some form of cloud. And this female eland carefully coming in for a drink. This elephant's been very tolerant. A bit nervous of these giraffes. You can see he's keeping an eye on them. Just look at this great shot. Goodness me, what a picture. Full up. Zebra in the distance. Maybe Impala will walk through. Giving us a great view of the elephant with Kilimanjaro in the background. There's just something really cool about that. For those of you just joining us, we're looking at a glacier on top of Mount Kilimanjaro in the background. That's that brilliant white line above the clouds, top of the mountain. And to give some context to that, we're on the equator here. We're about 200 kilometers from the equator. And we're looking at snow and ice on top of a mountain where an elephant and a savanna is in the same picture. See if you can hear the clicking of this eland bull's tendons across his knees as he walks up. See if you can, when he starts walking again, you'll notice there'll be a click. It'll be a repetitive click, is it? Did you hear it? It was a tendon. Something's coming. Look at this elephant. Ears out, head up. It's a clear sign that this elephant has heard something that he's finding interesting. There's another elephant coming into view. That's exactly what he heard coming in. Let's see which one is the more dominant of the two. There will be an interaction. Usually it's quite subdued. Let's just see what happens. Who is going to get the prime spot at the water? That is the question. Head shake, posturing, head up. That's all the conversations that these elephants are having with one another. It's obviously non-verbal. It's got a lot to do with cues. Let's see who gets the prime spot at the water. Welcome to everybody who's just joined us, and what we are looking at is a fantastic view of two magnificent bull elephant at Africam's Old Donyo Cam. We're in Kenya, but we're looking into Tanzania, and for those of you who haven't been listening to me rave on about this particular fact, we've got Kilimanjaro in the background, now a little bit obscured by the elephant. And interestingly, we just had this bull elephant on the right walk into the shot. The bull elephant on the left lifted his head and started posturing, and they're standing side on. And the question at the time was, which of the two are going to be the most dominant and dominate the best water point at this particular pan? And we've now had that answered. The elephant on the left is more dominant and is higher up the local hierarchy than this elephant on the right, in spite of the fact that, I don't know, I think he just looks better. But I am a stickler for tusks that are symmetrical. And as you can see, he's got a beautiful pair of tusks. Not too wide, and perfectly forward together, same length, same width, symmetrical shape. I don't know, for me that just works. This is an artificial water point, and it's pumped. It's not pumped at a great volume of water per minute, which I think is a great thing. And it does mean that the elephant often spend long periods of time getting enough water. What a great view watching the water pour out of that eland's mouth as she looked up. And it gives us a time to spend with these giants. Unlike most of the other pans that we've had a look at, the elephant tend to come in, drink, and then leave fairly quickly. We sometimes are lucky enough to spend hours with elephant at a particular pan. And they are often joined by eland, and by oryx, and by zebra, and by giraffe. Every now and again by olive baboons and impala. Weezer, you just made a comment about how this waterhole just keeps on delivering the best sightings. Gosh, you're right. The last couple of weeks around this pan have been incredible. There's always something going on and this feeling of energy around it. You don't quite know what's going to walk out of the distance or off to the right. It's always exciting. Doves winging it in. They will arrive in some numbers. And in the back we've got another eland making its way in. And let's not forget this really great view of the bull elephant drinking at this pan. Andrew, an interesting observation about how it's amazing that these giraffe can make the elephant look so small. And you are right, the giraffe is standing at around about 5 meters. For a big Maasai giraffe like this, is standing at about 5 meters at the top of the head. Where elephants are at around about 3.5 meters at the top of its head. But an elephant can still actually reach higher up a tree than a giraffe can. Not just because it can extend its trunk up, but they can also stand up on their back legs. And so an elephant's maximum reach is actually just slightly above that of a giraffe, believe it or not. And of course, they have the strength to push the tree down and bring everything down to a much more accessible height, for the smaller trees at least anyway. But most of the bigger trees have these flat ground lines at the bottom, and others that don't get that high, sort of on the left-hand side of the giraffe, you'll notice that there's quite a distinct angle to that tree. That is a feeding line from giraffe. They feed and they create these cone shapes, these inverted cone shapes, and trees anywhere sort of to about 5 meters. And then above that, the giraffe will feed upwards and keep a browse line, which gives trees quite a flat-bottomed look to their foliage. Making them look like parasols or umbrellas. Such a great view of all this. But we have got other cameras all over the place, and so why don't we go and have a look at Juma? And here we have a southern giraffe. So not the same as the Maasai giraffe. This is a giraffe that occurs only here in the Kruger National Park. Actually, Maasai giraffe only occur up in the top in Kenya. They do not occur down. And we've got the common giraffe. This is what we're looking at. But another bull giraffe. And of all the giraffe species, the Maasai and this giraffe are the same height. They're the tallest of them. And there's a lot of debate going on about subspecies of giraffe. I'm not going to get into it now. I don't even fully understand it. But suffice it to say that we looked at the two at the one and now are looking at the other of the two tallest of all the subspecies. And this is a very dark bull giraffe, and frankly, a very healthy bull giraffe as well. They can look quite tragic from time to time, but this one is looking massive. You see those forequarters, his shoulders, huge hindquarters, and having a great breakfast on that guarri tree. It's not common for them to eat that particular species of tree outside of winter. The tree itself is these sort of tough, leathery leaves that are full of tannin, which is quite distasteful. But because it's dry, a lot of the unpalatable leaves, as they say, become relatively palatable for some species. And the giraffe definitely widen their food preferences to include some of these less tasty trees in the dry season. Gosh, he's in good condition. Now you get dark giraffe. He's obviously a much darker giraffe than what we were looking at. But you also get blonde giraffes. So like I've always said that you get brunettes and you get blondes in the giraffes. And depending on your aesthetic appeal, you might like the darker colored giraffe or you might like the lighter colored giraffe. They get slightly darker with age, but for the most part, it's quite distinctive whether you have a blonde, brunette, or something in between. Interestingly, there seems to be a bit of a wound under his tail. You can see that there's the oxpeckers, which are those birds that are hanging around the base of its tail. You can see that they are pecking around there. I don't know if it's a wound or if it's just a growth of some sort, or if it's just his patterns are just disrupted there slightly. But what those birds will be doing is picking off parasites, but also keeping any wound that may be there open. And they pick off all the dead flesh, keeping it open and for fresh blood to circulate into the area, which obviously, to a point, will aid healing. The birds often do keep wounds open, particularly the red-billed oxpecker, which is most likely the bird we're looking at now. They have a diet that is biased towards blood as well, or to include blood, where the yellow-billed oxpecker, which is the rarer one in this area, will be more partial to ticks, larger ticks and parasites. Okay, so there you can see there definitely does look to be a wound of some sort. Yeah, definitely. You can see that the patterns are disrupted. Gosh, maybe he's not so healthy. Looks like he's got a bad case of hemorrhoids, poor guy. But it doesn't look like it's doing him any harm. That is a giant bull giraffe. In his prime, very confident. There's just this, when you get big elephants or big giraffe or big buffalo, big lion, it doesn't really matter what it is. It could be a big eland. There's just this confidence, this almost arrogant posture that they have. Totally at ease with their size and their strength. Giraffes having the strongest kick in the animal kingdom. I've watched a giraffe kick a steel plate. It's relatively common amongst the smaller reserves, not the Kruger, to transport animals from one place to another. And I've watched a giraffe kick a steel plate about a half-inch thick, kick dents into it with its hooves. And I've watched lions being kicked into somersaults by a giraffe kick.
On Woodbury Lodge's episode of Destination Safari.
I'm so used to views, I forget to mention it sometimes. Underfloor heating in the bathrooms, air conditioning, all those luxury items.
Dinner is a full three-course meal, starter, main and dessert.
Early morning drive, and on that drive you might see some slightly different things, some rare things.
Destination Safari, bringing luxury safari travel to the world.
Such a great view of this massive bull giraffe and a herd of nyala in at the Juma Dam. And what we're looking at is 4 nyala ewes and 2 or 3, 4, 5 nyala bulls. Spectacular antelope. Easily one of my favorites. The males are the ones with the dark coat and the horns, and the females are the ones with the very stripy tan colored or reddish tan colored coats. And the largest of the bull nyala, you can see that they got that frame of hair that you'll see this one. Look at him, look at what he's doing. So those are the 2 largest of the 2, and what they're doing is they're displaying to each other in profile. So you'll notice that very pronounced walk, that over pronounced walk. Look at that ruff and crest of hair. That's called a piloerection. And what they're doing is they are displaying in profile to one another without fighting, trying to dominate each other. That's such a great view of this behavior. You don't actually see it. It's not actually that common. Just have a look at that. They're trying not to fight by showing how glorious or magnificent they are. And just have a look at that. Crest of hair framing their bodies, necks all puffed up, horns on display. And what they're trying to do is avoid a fight now for these females by showing off how big and impressive they are. One bull will be submissive to the other. Which one is it going to be? Look how thick my neck is. Look at my forequarters. Look at how magnificent my coat is and how clean and crisp it is. That's the messages that they're trying to convey to one another. With horns that sharp, you don't want to argue or fight physically if you don't have to. Look at the horn tips. The horn tips of both Nyala seem to be parallel. So look at the last inch of the horn tip. And they're parallel. One. Mature bulls. If they're slightly apart, he might be a little bit past mature, this bull on the left. No, he is. Those horn tips are. He's definitely the bigger and the more impressive of the two. At least from a horn perspective. So they're both mature bulls, breeding bulls, not past their prime and not too young. One is just slightly younger, probably by a year, than the other one. So what's it going to be? Size and strength and maturity and experience against the younger, ambitious, probably stronger bull. Right now, who's got the most impressive display? I've got a feeling the guy on the right is just one. He seems to have relaxed his posture just slightly. You see how well it's worked? There's no fighting going on. There's no physical damage being done to one another. And yet this is a war of sorts, or a battle of sorts. Just walking around each other in circles. It's really quite special to see an entire display like this, to be honest with you. For those of you watching it, not really knowing the significance of this, I haven't watched a full display of two bull Nyala from start to finish like this in so many years. And there you can see it seems to be over. The bigger of the two is still in full display, and he sort of left the one on the right hand side licking himself and getting over himself. His coat starting to go back. His crest is starting to disappear and to wilt. It looked like the one on the left-hand side, he's just gone straight into an argument with another Nyala. So you probably found off-screen at the moment there's another bull Nyala that he's trying to intimidate. There's two youngsters wrestling with each other. You saw how they locked heads. That would give you an idea. They're just wrestling. That wasn't something serious. They were just wrestling with one another. Practice fighting, play fighting. But developing the skills and the strength needed for when they mature like these other two guys are. And if it had to come down to fighting, then, that's what it needs to be. So two bulls of a similar size and age and stature and hierarchy will fight. That's usually avoided by these sometimes quite ridiculous displays that these Nyala do. Cami, you've just made a comment saying that these are magnificent displays, and I must be honest with you, they are. I mean, definitely out of the antelope species that we find here in this area, they are one of the more magnificent of them. That silhouette is just incredible. Plus the coat, they got that shaggy coat and their yellow socks and their quite nice horns. You've got these two youngsters in the front here just showing. There's a front now. Let's see that big guy at the back there. He's obviously won the contest. Still displaying to a degree. Not quite over with his show. Zoom in where you can see him in all his glory. Crest starting to go down. Tracy, you want to know if these bull nyala are easily spooked at waterholes, are also easily spooked at waterholes? I suppose it depends on what's spooking them. They definitely make space for leopard and lion and wild dog, who are the predators who will take them out. But they're quite arrogant, big nyala. They're aggressive. They won't just spook for other antelope easily. So a big nyala bull like this doesn't care much for a giraffe or a zebra or even elephant. They'll just walk through and do their thing. So yeah, just similar to that bull giraffe that we were looking at a little bit earlier. There's definitely a confidence or an arrogance about these. When a bull in his prime or a ram in his prime. I suppose it's with any male of any species, right? Such a great view of all of these nyala.
Not everyone gets excited to hear a leopard chuff, spot a pangolin, or see a real impala rut. But if you are wild about the wild, you can become part of a community of like-minded nature lovers and share authentic wildlife experiences with the world. Join the Explorers Club and you will also enjoy the many benefits that come with it too. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
And what you're busy looking at here is you're having a look at one of Africa's rare treasures at the moment. You're having a look at a giant tusked bull elephant. Elephants of tusks greater than 100 pounds on each side are classified as super. And Amboseli and this part of Africa has some of these elephants. The Kruger National Park has the others. So it's only in these two areas that you can see elephants of this size. And frankly, you're not going to get a much bigger elephant. I mean, that elephant there, if he had to put his head down, I think that left-hand tusk would actually rest on the ground. Let's see if any of you can figure out who he is. He'd have a name. He's going to be documented. And his companions will change from time to time, but he will almost always be associated with younger bull elephant. Even that elephant at the back on the left, also massive. We are so blessed from this particular camera today. As African Aldoni has given us some spectacular shots. When we came to it first this morning, we could see on Kilimanjaro in the distance behind the elephant now, just absolutely crisp. And a couple of hours later, we're blessed with one of the largest elephant in this area, one of the largest elephant left in Africa. I mean, just look at those tusks. They make huge bull elephant look small. For those of you who follow such things, this elephant will absolutely have a name. Gosh, there's another massive tusk. Yes, me. What a treat. They look almost abnormal. I'm busy trying to see if I can find the name of this elephant. They're well documented. Honestly, for those of you just joining us right now, it's very rare to see even one huge tusker like this, but to see three of them in the same picture like we're doing now is super special. Obviously the biggest one is the one in the center, but the one left and right of him, they're also massive. Not quite resting on the ground, so not considered a super tusker. And they are more than 100 pounds in weight and can touch the ground when the elephant is resting his head in a normal position. But wow. we are getting some feedback, or I'm getting some feedback. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's just been reaching out to me. We have got one of our viewers that let me know that this is probably 1 ton, an elephant called 1 ton, the one that we're looking at right now. And I'm just seeing if I can see if it is. Most of these elephants are quite distinctive when it comes down to the shape of their tusks, the shape of their bodies, their ears. I see now from some news feeds that 1 ton had a wound treated recently. It was, maybe we can see if there's some evidence of some scarring anywhere on the body. Help us identify there. Goodness me. So we've got some information again coming in. So this 1 ton apparently lives in these areas close to where Old Donya is, called the Chulu Hills in Kenya. But is thought to have originated in the Tsavo region, which lies north of Amboseli. They're joined by a corridor. The elephants can move. And so he would have been born somewhere up north of where we are now, deep into Kenya. And was first seen in 1996, from what I can gather. But I'm also reading here that he broke one of his and this elephant definitely does not have a broken tusk. Let's just keep on looking. Such an interesting morning when we get to work out a mystery like this, to be honest with you. For those of you who don't know, you are welcome to send me your comment. You can register on the WildEarth website, and you can give us your comments and your thoughts on who you think this huge tusker is. The one in the center of the video now. His tusks that are so big they go sort of off screen. Even his left tusk is sharper. His right one seems a little bit more blunt at the tip. Keep on. I'm pretty convinced that this big bull is an elephant known as one ton. Um, one ton name is one ton basically, and is one of only 20 to 30 large tuskers left in the world. Their numbers have been dwindling over the years due to them being prime targets for poachers who prize massive shafts of ivory like that. And huge huge tuskers like this are becoming increasingly rarer, but thankfully, due to conservation efforts and wilderness areas that are being protected and elephant corridors that are being created so that elephant can get around, um, their numbers are remaining stable and hopefully like as impressive as the one is on the left over time will enter the record books as well. Gosh, can you imagine carrying a pair of teeth around with you like that? Definitely made my day. Today's been an incredible day on these live cameras. We've had Mount Kilimanjaro sticking out her head and showing us her peak, which is rare, and we've got one ton that's made an appearance with some of his buddies, some of which are actually just on their own incredible elephant. We've had great giraffe in the show. I mean, all these elephants you're looking at are around about the 5,000 to 6,000 kilograms. I mean, enormous bull elephant, massive. See how raggedy his ears are. Gosh, look at that. Mud, skin. Wow. See, one ton's tail is missing the distinctive tuft of hair, and that's another sign of advanced age. When they start balding, and the only place they really have hair is on their eyebrow, on their eyelashes, and on their tail. So, unlike humans who bald from the top of their heads, elephants bald on their tails. Goodness me, these are giant elephants. In the Kruger Park, at one of the rest camps called the Taba, they have an elephant museum, and in this museum, they've placed the tusks and skulls of the Magnificent Seven, which were the seven largest elephant in the park at that stage. They all pretty much died of natural causes, and because they were monitored, the skeletons were found and then put on display in the museum. And you can go and stand next to these enormous shafts of ivory. And when I say that one ton's tusks longer than what you are, you'd be able to walk under those tusks if they were framed with their tips on the floor. And I'm a 6-foot human being, easily with space to spare. And to give you some context as to how thick they are, those tusks are probably as thick around as your waist if you're moderately sized human. Which is incredible to think. Weigh over 100 pounds each on each side. So some context to that, imagine carrying around 2 cement bags in your mouth or 5 dog food packets. It's just the strength needed to do something like that is just incredible. What a privilege to be able to share the morning with these guys. particularly because of the remote nature of these cameras. We're getting such an intimate view into what they'd be doing in spite of humans being around.
Get ready for your daily dose of African wildlife magic. Be enchanted by the intimate moments shared by the animals as they drink, play, and interact in their natural habitat. With our daily wildlife videos, you'll experience the thrill of safari adventures without ever having to leave your seat. Let the wild adventure unfold right before your eyes. Africam, always live, always wild.
These zebra now have masked these elephant tusks, but you can just see the glimpses coming out of the sides. These are plain zebra, the most common of the three zebra species that we find in Africa. About 600,000 of them around between East Africa and South Africa. Not that many giraffe, 1,000 giraffe. And when we start talking about elephant, particularly large tusked bulls like the ones that you're having a look at right now, there are only about 20 or 30 of these enormous bull elephant around. I'm talking about these super tuskers, elephants with ivory over 100 pounds and that can touch the ground when they're walking. And have a look at that. This particular elephant we're looking at now on the right hand side with these huge tusks, he's called Wonton in this area. First seen in 1996. Probably born in Tsavo National Park, slightly north of where we are now. So much activity around Afrikaans or Borneo Cam at the moment. It's amazing. There's this bachelor herd of ellies, a group of giraffe, a journey of giraffe, and this dazzle of zebra that is all standing in these layers between us in the bush behind. And from the vantage point that we have now, it's almost confounding to the eye. You don't quite know what to look at. So much going on. These elephants couldn't have left much to drink in this pan. You can see that the zebras were clustered around. Very small portion in the pan, that's the leftover water. I don't think there's much left at all. Not to worry, it is pumped and will be filled. Kenya is in its dry season now. Rains will come back in late November, December. And right now it is the dry season, same as it is in South Africa. Temperatures as well, we call it winter. So they're in a dry season now. Kenya is also experiencing the tail end of a pretty significant drought. Thankfully, for most of the areas in Kenya, it seems to have broken. There's a couple of counties or provinces, states, that there still is a risk to people's food security. But in this particular area, these animals are all looking pretty healthy. Tough to say with zebra because they always look sort of round and plump and sleek. And also fairly tough to see with elephant because it takes a lot to starve an elephant. But the giraffe are looking pretty good. The eland are looking pretty good. The impala are looking good. The baboons we've seen today, all the animals that we've seen around this water today are all looking pretty good. So I imagine there's enough going around for everybody still. For those of you just joining us, firstly, welcome. Secondly, my name is Steph, and we're coming to you from Kenya, right on the border with Tanzania, close to Amboseli National Park. And we're looking at one of the last great tuskers, the super tuskers left in Africa. His name is One-Ton, and he lives in this area and has been seen on the hills that you see in the background. Betty, you've asked an interesting question. You've asked, do zebra go through a certain amount of teeth, just the same as ellies do? Do giraffe, excuse me, not zebra. Do giraffe go through a certain amount of teeth like ellies do? Gosh, that's a good question. Definitely not the same amount. So, just for those of you who might think that it's a pretty bizarre question to ask, most mammals get milk teeth and then get their adult molars, and that lasts them for their lives as the grinding surfaces for their teeth. Elephant have 6 sets of molars, so they have milk teeth, or milk tusks at least anyway. Those milk tusks fall out when they're about a year old, and then they get their adult tusks. But in addition to that, they get 6 different sets of molars that wear out from the back of the mouth forwards through the course of their lives. And the question was, do giraffe have the same? Definitely yes, question, but not the same amount. So giraffe, as far as I'm aware, just get the 1 adult set of molars, and that will last them for their entire lives. They definitely won't get 6 as far as I know. And this big elephant, One-Ton, he will probably be on his last set of molars now. And it's that actually determines the maximum lifespan of an elephant. The zebra, gosh, look at that jumping, flying back kick that zebra did there. It's his own movie. The Bruce Lee of the Zebra Kingdom. Yeah. It's actually quite comical, to be honest. I think, like, if any of you that may have caught that on video, that would be an absolute crazy thing. Jumping, spinning, flying back kick that the zebra did. Classic. As you can see, these zebra do get a bit nippy with one another, and it's not just the stallions that can bite each other. The mares also bite in. I think this oxpecker on the mouth of this giraffe. Goodness me, insistent, trying to get at a morsel that was obviously on the lip. There you got a great view of the top of the horns. They're not actually horns; they're called ossicones. Giraffe are born with them. They're lying flat against the skull, and then they become erect and then ossify against the skull as they get a little bit older. The male giraffe that never stop depositing calcium, or they never stop calcification, and those horns actually become quite robust and strong. And they use them for fighting. They will swing their heads at one another and try and knock each other off their feet and do damage with their horns and those bony protuberances on the bridge of their nose and above their eyes. And you can imagine a giraffe swinging that knobbly skull at an opponent with the leverage that they can generate through their necks and through their long legs. You can imagine that they can do some damage. Elephant, on the other hand, will often display and posture at one another very similar to how the nyala on, and in extreme cases will wrestle with each other. And can you imagine trying to go against this one on those massive tusks? I mean, an opponent will just be outgunned, for lack of a better word, right from the start. These three elephants are standing the entire waterhole full. There's enough space there for anyone to come down and drink. The good thing is that I can just see that it's somewhat shallow amount of water just covering the bottom of the pad on the elephant's foot, the one on the left-hand side. Look at this elephant coming really close to the camera. See that feeding notch? The left-hand tusk. It's just the wear and tear from eating grass. It's such a treat having them so close. These elephants will each need about 200 liters of water a day. I don't think that this plan will be able to give each of these giants that amount of water. Gosh, the view. Incredible. Look at how close this elephant's coming. Listen to the footfalls, the pads on the floor. They walk really quietly. Isn't this just the land of giants? Tall giraffe and these massive bull elephants. Lid, you're asking if elephant tusks continue to grow their whole life? And yes, you are 100% right. They do grow the entire life of the elephant and will accelerate in growth when they get to the age that these elephants are now. So at the time an elephant bull enters his prime, he still has a lot of tusk length and left to go. And then you get extraordinary elephants like one ton here, who are naturally just predisposed to having massive tusks to start with. And when they reach the age that they're at now, which you're probably looking at one ton being in the region of about 50 years old, plus minus somewhere around there. Yeah. Oh, like a hose pipe spraying his flanks with that mud. See, there's a biting fly or something worrying him. You can see the way that he's tapping between his legs with his tail. Wow, look at that. Goodness. What an ordinary day. Dominant bulls just waiting their time to get their water. They're known as ascaris in this area, the companions to large tusked bulls like this. And it's a loose association of bulls. They won't always be with one ton. They will come and go, but generally speaking, the younger bulls are busy learning what from the older bulls. And the older bulls are past their prime from a mating point of view and don't mind the companionship. Bull elephant go into a phase called must, anywhere from a couple of weeks to months in a year. And during this time, they have a massive increase in testosterone, which forces them biologically to seek out females in estrus. Old, big, dominant bulls like this suppress that urge in the younger bulls significantly. And while it won't stop younger bulls going into must, it definitely suppresses the urge. And so you find younger bulls hanging around with the older bulls who don't have the same, I suppose, virility anymore. That the peak of must with these big old bulls is not as high as it would be for a prime bull, prime mating bull. And they also just then don't mind the company. So learning on the one hand, companionship on the other. For elephants that are not marching from one breeding herd to another, fighting with everything that they come across in order to display how magnificent they are for females looking for the best possible mate for their offspring. Alex, you want to know if dirty water makes elephants sick? Gosh, that's a good question, Alex. Contaminated water will make elephants sick. Dirty water doesn't seem to make much of a difference. However, elephants will almost always prefer the cleanest water that they can get. And so there is actually some merit in what you're asking. They don't like dirty water. And often you will see elephant digging for water next to water sources. And they will very gently disperse and leaves and detritus on top of water, drinking right from the very top where they can, skimming off the cleanest water with the least amount of sin. And they can dig up pipes or put their trunks over water outlets. They do. And they will do that exclusively. They won't drink at other points in the pan. Gosh, this elephant's got sharp teeth. They're like needles. He's another magnificent bull elephant to see. Overshadowed obviously by one ton in the back, but nonetheless, those tusks are massive. Not as robust, but elegant. Almost rapier-like. So Alex, yeah, it's you ask a very good question there. Definitely contaminated water will make any animal sick. And so, yeah, there's that. But not dirty water. However, elephants do love clean water though. Right, well, the cameras that we haven't been visiting yet today is Okakoya, Namibia. So why don't we go and have a look at Okakoya? So here you have a very different view. This is now, we come about 3,000 kilometers west across 3 countries and are now in Namibia's Etosha National Park at Okukweyo, sorry, that's how you say it, Okukweyo. And what we here is we're looking at a breeding herd of elephants. Into the male herd that we had a look at a little bit earlier, this is a breeding herd. You probably find that there's one very mature female here, and the rest will be a mixture of adult cows and then their calves. And that's what we're looking at. The antelope that you're having a look at for the most part are all springbuck. And unusually in this particular area, we see antelope wading out into the water to drink. Generally speaking, if there's a lot of crocodiles in an area or the area has crocodiles in it, you won't find this behavior of antelope wading out into the water. And interestingly, we've been debating why over the last couple of weeks, and we've decided that it's a mixture between accessing the cleanest water possible and pleasure. Because springbuck wade out into the water, have a swim, not drinking anything, and then climb back out there. And it just really is the most incredible scene to sit and watch. Notice how close the young elephant off on the right-hand side stays with Tom. Obviously, as I say, that he walks away from her. For those of you who know the way that I guide, it never ceases to amaze me how I would make a definitive statement like that, and how my nature's cynical sense of humor often proves me wrong. Quite hazy, you can see that although there's a blue sky around, there's a certain mutedness to what is usually an electric blue sky. And, well, there's no wind at the moment. There could have been some wind last night, which just kicked some dust up into the atmosphere. But also, it's also a sign of the change of the seasons. As we progress through the dry season and into the terrible heat at the beginning of summer, September, October, the winds start picking up as the weather systems change and dust gets kicked up into the atmosphere. And it's that dust that's necessary for the first rains to form, along with obviously enough moisture in the atmosphere. There you can see interestingly it's the inlet pipe. He wasn't allowed to drink from there. The female.
Those sounds just go straight through you.
Here we've got a herd of elephant, a breeding herd of elephant at Okokwe in Namibia. This female, I'm assuming she's the matriarch because she's old and big, and that's what the matriarchs are, has waded out into the water, and she looks like she's picking up sediment from the bottom of the pan, mud, and coating her flanks with it and her ears, and that makes sense. Where else in a desert environment like this would you find mud, other than in the bottom of pools? I thought she was going to go for a swim, but she just had a definite bath. Got some mud down her side and between and at the back of her ears, and that'll help with cooling her down. It's midday out there in Africa, and the temperature will be around the 90s at the moment. Heat of the day coming around about 4 o'clock in this particular area. So I've noted that we'd expect it to get blisteringly hot around midday lunchtime, but in fact in the Kalahari it seems to just increase in temperature until 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. I think this youngster is going to go back to the original plan, which was to go and drink from that rocky inlet before following the matriarch out and away from the pan. She was chased off by that old cow a few minutes ago and has been patiently waiting for her turn. Didn't like the springbok sneaking up behind her and gave it a disgusted look. Something gave the animals a bit of a fright. I think it was just this elephant now has had her mouthful. She's now going to rush off and rejoin her family, which is making their way down that fairly broad game path that we see them on now. We're often watching animals get there. There's a fork in the game path there, just in front of that elephant. So we'll see which road they're going to take. Are they going to stick right, or are they going to peel off left? See which way they go.
Do you love relaxing at a waterhole with the sights and sounds of Africa all around you? Well, we have some really exciting news for you. From August 1st, Africam is joining forces with WildEarth to bring the majesty of Africa right into your living room with 9 incredible new Waterhole cameras from across South Africa and Kenya. Get ready to embark on a new journey. This is Live at the Waterhole.
There's almost an endless stream of animals that come and drink at these pans. I've noticed that there's around about 20-minute, 25-minute rotation. And although at the moment we seem to just have elephant in the background, one oryx, zebra, and springbok, it's not uncommon to count 12 species of animals around these waterholes in this part of the park. They rotate through this area every 25 minutes or so. Really just, this is one of those places you just need to keep on watching because there's always something going on. Very similar to Old Donyo. The breeze is picked up, ruffling water. And that'll hold the clue is in why we're seeing the muted colours. It's not the electric blue, very crisp air that we're used to seeing here. Feeling that the wind has been blowing quite a lot here. A couple of weeks ago, we had a morning where the wind had been howling, and it picked up so much dust from the salt pans that the line of trees in the background was pretty much obscured from view. But about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and on a very clear day, once the dust has settled, you can actually see the blue in the sky reflected in the pan. We were making a note then of how it's going to be rather fleeting. That as the weather systems change and the wind starts picking up the dust and throwing it into the atmosphere, and with a lack of rain, it's just going to get even in the crew where I'm sitting. It does the same thing. Sort of late August into September into October, things seem to be white. The sky is the same color as the ground. You can't really just tell where, the horizon where one starts and the other one stops. And it's all just heralding the change in the season. I'm for one looking forward to the dry season, and in particular the next couple of months, because activity around these pans, all of the pans that we got cameras at, will just be increasing. And for those of you who love this type of animal interaction, definitely keep your eyes peeled on the show, because it's only going to get busier as it dries out, and food will now, the food resources that are available now are dwindling down to the last few morsels. Water and conservation of energy is going to become the primary driver. And as distances increase between feeding areas and these water sources, a constant stream of animals is expected until the first rains break. And then pretty much activity around these pans evaporate, but replaced by other things, smaller, different things. It's the cycle. Here we've got the springbok wading out into the water again. They love entering from that area where you're seeing, I'm starting to call it the beach. I love it. Gosh, I can't believe that today has flown by so much. We've got 2 more minutes before it closes, and just to recap about what we've seen, we had that magnificent sighting of 1 ton, that huge bull elephant at Old Donyo in Kenya. We've had breeding herds of elephant. We've had young bull elephants sloshing around in pans. We've had baboons, olive baboons and chima baboons. We've had a display between 2 Nyala bulls that was phenomenal. We managed to watch the entire thing, and we got a really up close and personal view of a terrapin sunning himself. So a jam-packed show today. I just want to say thank you for all of you out there with all your comments and your questions, and thank you for all your support. thanks for the guys operating the cameras, and thanks for the team that brings us to you, and of course, thanks for all the partners, and for everyone out there that makes a show like this possible. Really, just much gratitude for days like this. Couldn't have spent my Saturday morning better. So, again, just thank you to everybody. Right, I'm going to be signing off in the next couple of minutes. The show will go on for a couple of seconds. Well, next couple of seconds. The show will go on for a couple of seconds more, and then we'll close off. But from my side, to all of you out there, thank you very much, and goodbye. Have a great weekend.